I'm Heather from Here Booktubes, and today is the mid-year book freakout tag. I had a lot of trouble coming up with the answers for these, most notably what was the best book that I read this year. But here's my answers. Let me know if you have any overlap, and if you made this video with lots of romance answers, go ahead and tell me in the comments so I can check yours out. First question is best book you've read in 2020, and this one I have no idea, but I went ahead and chose Burn, which is the first in the Dark in You series by Suzanne Wright. I had to buy every book in this series, which I don't do, and since I was satisfied with my purchase every single time, I felt like it deserved a place on this list. It's a paranormal urban fantasy romance about demons, and I just really enjoyed it. I love Suzanne Wright's paranormal romances in general. She's a great author. I enjoy her writing, and so I'm happy to put her on the list. Next, we have the best sequel you've read so far in 2020, and this one I'm gonna have to give to Tessa Bailey's Love Her or Lose Her, which is the second in the Hot and Hammered series. This is a second chance romance for a married couple who have just grown apart, have failed to understand each other's love languages, have struggled with communication, and even though they love each other, they're in a place where their marriage isn't worth holding on to. They go to therapy, they seek counsel, they work on themselves, and I just think it's a great book for anybody in a long-term relationship because it does a great job of showing how even when all you can see is your partner's flaws, you've contributed to where you're at. This is not talking about abusive relationships, obviously, because if you're a victim of abuse, you're not responsible for that. This is just an okay marriage that is just not doing great. And you can be so focused on the other person's flaws and not realizing what you're doing that is really contributing to the problem. Next, we have a new release that you haven't read yet but want to, and for this I'm going to go with Be My Brayshaw, which is number 4 in the Brayshaw High series by Meagan, Brandy, and I loved the whole trilogy. I read all 3 in 2 days. This is another guy in the group's book and romance, and I've been looking forward to it since like October, and it came out and I haven't read it. So I really want to read it. Next is most anticipated release for the second half of the year, and this for me is not the romance book. It has to be Return of the Thief, which is number 6 in the Queen's Thief series by Meagan Whalen Turner. This series has been like 15 years in the making. I've been reading it since I was a teenager. I've been I've been waiting for this book, and it's the conclusion to the whole series, and I'm so excited. I think it's going to be amazing. I just pray to God that it actually comes out in October because it's just consistently been moved back. It's so helped me. I just want the book so badly. This is a YA fantasy series, and it's absolutely fantastic. It's based on mythology. The first book is a traveling story. I also think that the first book is not the greatest in the series at all, but this series is so cool because at the end of every single book, you kind of get the events explained to you, and you realize that certain characters were on purpose doing all these things behind the scenes that you hadn't put together, and I love it. It's just the greatest reveals and twists and turns, and I love the characters so much. Next, we have your biggest disappointment, and this for me is Birthday Girl by Penelope Douglas. I've decided that Penelope Douglas is not the author for me. I know that is sacrilege on Romance BookTube, but I just don't really enjoy her stories. It's all angst and being unhappy, and then they just slap a band-aid on it and oh, we're happy now, and I'm like, that's not a healthy relationship. This is supposed to be your soulmate, your forever, the person that you love for the rest of your life, and 2 pages ago you guys still couldn't have a fight without a major miscommunication or blowing up when you're like 40 freaking years old. Birthday Girl, I'd already read Bully. I heard that wasn't her greatest. Go ahead and try Birthday Girl. I said, okay, I'm gonna do it. You guys led me astray because turns out I'm of the opinion that you probably love her or just she's not for you and she's not for me. So Birthday Girl, I didn't have a problem with the trope, which is this girl ends up dating her boyfriend's dad. So I didn't have a problem with the trope. I didn't have a problem with the age gap, although I did think it would make more sense if she was about 2 years older. What I had a problem with is you're in an age gap, and the older person in the age gap is not being mature about the relationship. Now, I know in this story it was the whole he's never had a real relationship thing, but I'm sorry, that doesn't matter. Like, you should be more mature than you were 20 years ago. And it doesn't matter if you had a relationship or not. So that bugged me, annoyed me. I couldn't get on board, and I just am not a fan. Next, we have biggest surprise for this. I have to go with Baby and the Late Night Howlers by Kathryn Moon. I saw this author on a Black romance authors list by Steph's Romance, I think. I will include her channel down below, although I saw it on her Instagram. I took a screenshot of the list and I went to Goodreads and I checked out every single author, tried to see if there were any books that I thought interested me and my taste. And if there were, I went ahead and added one of the books to my TBR list. This was one of them. This is an Omega-verse, reverse harem, motorcycle club, like urban fantasy romance, and I was all about it. This is maybe not the greatest book to explain what an Omega-verse is because it didn't explain a whole lot. It kind of went on the assumption that you knew what they were talking about. But in an Omega-verse, you have alphas, betas, and omegas. Alphas run everything. Betas are the workers. And omegas usually are breeders with very little rights, or breeders who are very valued, but they can be very valued and treated badly. So there are lots of Omega-verse books and authors that I cannot possibly recommend because I don't like them. This is one where the omegas kind of have the power. And so every whim is catered to. And I just loved it. There was a little male action. There was lots of female male action. And this book is, first of all, I really like this author. But this book in particular, there is supporting other women and not being catty and dramatic. There is consent tackled. And is this okay or is this not? There's kind of platonic love, so she's not romantically attached to every single alpha in the motorcycle club, and that's okay. Also, there's one of the alphas is kind of trying to make all these decisions, and she's like, no, like you can make that decision for you, but you're not going to make it for all of us. And I just loved it. I thought that it tackled everything so incredibly well. Even if you're not a fan of Omegaverse but want one where you know that the girl is going to be treated right and there's not going to be any abuse or rape, this was a great book. I read a couple more books from her. I really like her as an author. It's all reverse harem, and most of it also has male-male relationships without fetishizing it. So I highly recommend. They're very cool fantasy books. Next is your favorite new author, and I'm gonna have to go with Rina Kent. I've read like 6 of her books this year. She kind of writes sociopaths and dark romance. I started with her high school bully romance, and that guy is a sociopath, and I was just like, oh my gosh, what am I reading? But like I couldn't stop. And I ended up just loving it, and I would say the first book is maybe the most controversial because you don't know any of the history, you don't know why he's doing anything, you don't get to see into his mind at all, and so it's very it's like boundary pushing, but so good. I've read a bunch of her books. They're all crazy and I kind of love them a lot. I highly recommend if you're a fan of dark romance already. For me, the books aren't abusive, but they definitely do have triggers for consent, because they're at least dubious consent, and you know, if that's a trigger for you, then maybe steer clear. Also, if you've never read a dark romance, maybe not the greatest beginner intro. Next we have newest fictional crush, and for me this has got to be Finch from Counterfeit Love by Jessica Gadziala. And I love him so much. He's so cute. He's tattooed and a criminal and a bad boy who is so freaking sweet. Like, he is so sweet and so good at reading her and knowing, okay, I'm gonna make a joke here so that she feels better. He's so freaking sweet while also being a criminal, will kill people for you, will do all the things. and he's just so sweet. So I kind of love him, like, a lot. Next we have newest favorite character, and for this I decided to go with Jafar from Desperate Measures by Katie Roberts because it's a villain retelling, and her Jafar was what I always wanted Jafar to be. Like, am I the only one? I don't think I am. Am I the only one that was like, with the hourglass scene and Aladdin and stuff, I was like, that seems kind of sexual. Yeah, that's where she went, and I loved it. He was good looking, it was BDSM, the Jafar that I always wanted, so I'm gonna have to go with him. Next we have Book That Made You Cry, and for this I will have to go with House of Earth and Blood, the first in the Crescent City series by Sarah J. Maas. I sobbed. I cried so hard. If you guys have read it, I will just tell you, I cried in the library fight scene when it was all my friends are behind me. I cried so much. It was terrible, but also beautiful, and I loved it. I loved it. Next, we have a book that made you happy, and for this I decided to go with Your Dad Will Do, which is the first in the Touch of Taboo series by Katie Robert. This was smut all the way, dirty, filthy, kinky smut, and it was beautiful, and I loved it, and it's what I wanted, and it made me happy, and also the ending was fantastic. If you like smut, I recommend. There is a little tiniest bit of daddy kink in it, but I wouldn't call it really daddy kink. There's no daddy and little play, if that makes sense, which that doesn't really do it for me. This was just, do you want to call me daddy? That was kind of as far as it went, and that was fine with me. The rest was just so good. So good. So I recommend. It made me really happy. Probably up here throwing gang signs, don't know. I'm just trying to point at my smile, okay? It made me happy. Yeah. It's okay. I'm a dork. I understand it. I'm on BookTube. I honestly don't know what you expected. But yeah. Next we have the most beautiful book that you bought so far this year, and for this I will also have to go with House of Earth and Blood. And it's gorgeous. Ironically, the only book that I've bought in physical format I've loaned to my sister and can't hold it up, so it's just gonna be its own little picture thing like always. But that is the only physical book that I bought this year. I did also buy Dreammaker by Kristen Ashley, and it's really pretty, but that was on ebook. So there you go, those two. What books do you need to read before the end of the year? None. If I'm in the mood to read them and I end up picking them up, they will get read. Otherwise, they won't, and that's just kind of how I work, and I'm good with it. Next is book to movie adaptation, the best one, and for me this has to be Little Woman. It was fantastic. I cried so hard. It's been so long since I watched the movie or read the book that I kind of forgot some of the details that just ripped my freaking heart out. Like, I knew the really big ones, but oh my gosh, so sad. It's so sad. But it's so fantastically done. You can definitely watch it if you haven't read the book, or watch it having read the book. I think it will affect you either way. It was gorgeous, so well done. It really is a fantastic story, a feminism story in a time when that wasn't okay. That wasn't valued. And there's also so many other factors. There's familial relationships, there's grief. Civil War was happening in the beginning of the story, so you have some of that. It's very, very moving, and it was exceptionally well done. That's it. I completed the tag. I would love to see your version, so let me know if you made it. It's my favorite tag. It's my favorite tag. I'm pretty sure it might be everybody's favorite tag, and that's okay. It's something to look forward to in the middle of the year. And if you're thinking about making it, I hope you do. Just because there's tons of people who make it doesn't mean that nobody will watch your version. So if you want to make it, go ahead. Plus, it's just kind of fun to go back and rewatch for yourself and, you know, have this midway point for every year that you're on BookTube. So I hope you make it. I hope that you stick around if you want romance recommendations, and I will see you again in a few days. Thank you. Bye.